It's wonderful. It's wonderful. We've been married 23 years. It's lovely. I don't know how many of you just got married, maybe 2 years, maybe 3, maybe 1 year, maybe a week. But it's wonderful. And don't be afraid to argue. I don't want you to make up an argument, but just don't be afraid to argue. You know, when you're newly married, you get so you're afraid to argue. Oh God, is this it? Is this going to be this? No, argue, let it out. First 2 years of our marriage, I had a ball. I had a ball. Because I'd look at my wife when I wanted to, and I'd say, row! Row! Row, row! Tears run down her cheeks, and she'd run upstairs and slam the bathroom door. And I'd sit downstairs, and I'd say, row, row. Row, 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 row. I don't know what happened to her in the 3rd year. I don't know what happened. The communists got to her or something. But I remember distinctly, I looked at her and I said, row! And she said, harr! Things haven't been right since. And sometimes, marriage, living with a person, you don't have to have conflict. You know, you haven't had an argument in 3-4 months. And last night was just wonderful. And you wake up and you look at your mate and he's the dumbest looking thing you've ever seen in your life. And he isn't doing anything, he's just there. But he just looks dumb to you. And you get angry with yourself for marrying somebody who looks this dumb. And he sits up and smiles. Oh, how are you? Looking dumb, smiling. And you go downstairs angry with yourself because you got to live for the rest of your life with somebody this dumb. You can't understand it. And he comes downstairs smiling and looking dumb. And he's got the nerve to say, what's the matter with you this morning? What is the matter with me? Why is it that there's always something wrong with me? How come there's never anything wrong with you? You know, you need to see a psychiatrist. But my mother and father, smooth, man. Don't argue long. And some people say, well, they're old people and they don't want a heart attack. No, that isn't it. That isn't it. It's just that I would imagine 50 years after a while you learn what you want to burn your energy on. Because I hear the two of them talking to each other and they will give up on a great opening. And you know that's the fun part of life, man. Your wife leaves an opening like that, you drive right on in, man. Turn that thing around and grate it till she says, ow. But my mother and father won't even pick it up. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. They came to my house. My father took his hat off, put it in the chair. My mother sat in the chair next to him. Dad went over to the children. Here's some money for you, and the money for you, and the money for you, and the money for you. Came back, sat down on his hat. My mother's looking at him. So my mother said, you just sat on your hat. My father said, I know it. That was it. Now, if I left an opening like that for my wife, first she would have done a half hour of eye rolls and arm waves. Time for him to leave. My father stood up, picked up his hat, did not fix it, put it on top of his head, with the lumps and the dips all in it. My mother looked up at him, took his arm, they went out the door. My wife would have done another half hour. If you think I am going out the door with somebody with a hat on looking like that, you've lost your mind. I'm riding in the car with him. Father's driving, my mother's sitting on the passenger side. My father goes past the turn, 2 miles. My mother's sitting up front like this. I'm in the back like this. I said, Mom. She said, yes. I said, didn't Dad go past the turn? She said, yes. I said, well, why don't you say something to Dad? My mother said, your father knows what he's doing. My wife would have done a half hour on me. Would you please pull over so I can get a bus or a cab or something? I'd like to ride with somebody who knows where they're going. You know, this area has already been discovered. Wonderful. The arguments that I have with my wife, I'm able to pay her back now. There was a time she was way ahead of me. After the 3rd year, she would win every argument. Not that I was wrong, but she had this weapon she had developed. I'd make a statement, and I'd break out the Bible, Reader's Digest, and an encyclopedia, and I'd say, all 3 say exactly what I just said. And she said, and that sucking of the teeth, oh, it just tore me up. And then it just got inside of me. It just tore, and I had no answer for it. And then the 15th year I was married, the weapon came. And now it gets to her just like gets to me, goes inside. I've always looked for something to just burn her up, man. It's a wonderful weapon. And husbands get it, but it takes 15 years for them to develop it, I don't know why we take so long, but it's a fantastic weapon. My grandfather was the first one to have it. I didn't know he had it when I first saw it, because I was 6 years old. I was in their home, and we were playing a game downstairs, and my grandmother was upstairs. It was a 2-story house. And my grandmother said, Russell! 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 And my grandfather just... And I looked at him. I said, Granddad? He said, yeah. I said, Granddad, Grandmom just called you. He said, who? I said, Grandmom, she's upstairs and she called you. He said, when? I said, just now. He said, And my grandmother came to the top of the steps. She still couldn't see him because we were in the back part of the living room. She said, Russell, will you come up here, please? And my grandfather was... I said, Granddad? He said, yeah. I said, she did it again. He said, who? I said, Grandmom just called you. He said, when? I said, oh, no. And my grandmother came downstairs. Veins were popping all over her neck. And there was a vein going down the center of her forehead. That thing was standing out about a foot. She said, you heard me call you, And the halo came over my grandfather's head. He said, if I had heard you, my darling, my love, I would have come. I promise you. And I didn't know it was the weapon. Next time I saw it, I was 15. My father had it then. My mother called my father. We were sitting in the living room, and I know my father was awake because I just finished saying something to him. And my mother called him, and he just sat there. Silence was in the living room. And she called again. And I said, Dad. He said, yeah. I said, oh, man. This disease is running through this family. I said, Mom called you. He said, my mother came in and she had, you get out when I called you. He said, I didn't hear you. Damn you. I have the weapon now, boy. And I love it, man. I love it. Nothing gets to them worse than that, man. And they come in the room. My wife called me, man. I don't hear a thing. And she comes in the room, and I love it, man. I didn't hear a thing you said. And I know it's tearing her up. It kills them, because they know you heard them. But they can't prove it.